My husband and I have been together for 9 years and have 2 children. He is a great man, but has never been a great communicator. He tends to hold his feelings in. We have had conversations over the years where I have pleaded with him to express his feelings, sometimes because it is not healthy to hold them in. I expressed my worries that one day it will lead to resentment in our relationship, because how will I know to fix something if I don't know it bothers him? Well, I fear that day is here. For reference, I am a stay-at-home mom and he works, which is something we both want and have enjoyed the dynamics of. He started a new job a few weeks ago with family, which has resulted in him being gone for longer hours because after work, they stand around talking or doing random little side projects around his family's house. This has been bothering me a little because it has been stressful being home all day with the kids for a much longer time than I'm used to. So I expressed that to him. I actually wasn't going to express it to him because I don't want to complain. I know he is working so hard out in this heat, and I'm very grateful and know I have it easy not working. But he noticed I was stressed when he got home. So I decided to confide in him about how I have been struggling with these longer hours and that I didn't realize this new job would involve him hanging around for long periods of time after the work was done. This led to his explosion. To paraphrase, he basically said he is sick of me always monitoring him and trying to control what he does. He will never do anything but go to work and come straight home. I said that is not what I meant at all. I was just trying to express that it has been a little hard for me lately. He said he is sick of coming home after long days of working hard to a wife who is in a bad mood or upset with him. I said I wish he wouldn't hold his tongue and would have told me he has felt that way, so I could be better. And he said, if I didn't hold my tongue all the time, you would have divorced me by now. I feel bad. I know I probably do complain too much, but I am just a person who likes to express my feelings. I didn't realize it was making him feel scrutinized and controlled. So what do I do now? I hate that he feels this way and has for who knows how long now. I'm worried I won't be able to make it up. I feel selfish and inconsiderate and like an awful wife. Any advice on how to remedy this situation other than obviously improving my behavior on a daily basis? I am worried this has gone on too long and I will never be the wife who brings him peace. To add, I expressed to my husband that his longer work hours have been stressful for me. I am a stay-at-home mom, which led to him exploding and telling me he is tired of feeling controlled and monitored by me all the time. I had no idea he felt this way because he is not one to express his feelings. He keeps them inside. Obviously, I will improve my actions, but I am worried these feelings have been here for so long that I might not be able to remedy the resentment he is feeling towards me. He is against counseling. Any advice? Now, for a few comments before the update. Comment 1. Your request that he come home after work and tend to the family and home he created with you is not unreasonable. Your request that he proactively engage with the children rather than throwing his hands up, saying he doesn't know what to do, but when you tell him you're a nag, is also not unreasonable. This is fixable if he wants to fix it. Personally, I'm divorced and love that I only do 50% of the work and pay 50% of the bills now. It's a lot less work, stress, and turmoil that being married was for me. It doesn't have to come to that, though. Book a 2-week vacation for yourself. He can have a solo 2-week trip too, of course. When you return from yours, then revisit the conversation around how best to run the household and balance the needs of everyone in the family. He may see a lot while you're gone that he conveniently blind to today. Comment 2. I have seen this before, and this is what happens when you get married and have kids too young and weren't prepared for the amount of work that is required as parents. First off, you got to figure out if he is checked out, meaning is he past the point of no return, and the resentment, justified or not, has turned your marriage sour. If not, you need to sit down and game plan on how to make it work and how to talk about issues. If it has, you need to figure out how to separate. For me, I spent my 20s goofing around. You guys missed out on that. Now for the update. Hey everyone, thanks for checking in. 3 months have passed since that intense conversation with my husband, and a lot has happened. After his outburst, I decided to take a step back and really think about how I could change my approach. I started by giving him more space and trying not to bombard him with my feelings. every time he walked through the door. It was hard, but I knew it was necessary. One evening, about a month after our argument, he came home earlier than usual. He seemed different, more relaxed. He told me that he had decided to cut down on the after-work hangouts with his family. He said he realized that while he needed his space, he also needed to be more present at home. This was a huge relief for me, and I felt like we were making progress. However, things took an unexpected turn. One night, I overheard him on the phone with his brother. He was talking about a job offer he had received from a different company. This was news to me. When I asked him about it, he admitted that he had been considering it for a while, but didn't want to bring it up because he knew it would mean even longer hours and possibly relocating. I was shocked and hurt that he hadn't discussed it with me sooner. We had a long talk that night. He confessed that he felt trapped in his current job and that this new opportunity seemed like a way out. He also admitted that he was scared to tell me because he didn't want to add more stress to our already strained relationship. I understood his feelings, but I couldn't help but feel like he was still keeping things from me. As the weeks went by, he became more distant. He was spending more time at work and less time at home. I tried to be supportive, but it was hard not to feel neglected. One day, I decided to visit him at work to surprise him with lunch. When I got there, I saw him laughing and joking with a female coworker. It felt like a punch to the gut. I didn't confront him right away, but it was clear that something was off. That night, I asked him about his coworker. He assured me that they were just friends and that I had nothing to worry about. But I couldn't shake the feeling that there was more to the story. I started to notice little things. He was more protective of his phone, and he seemed to be texting more often. My mind was racing with possibilities, but I didn't want to jump to conclusions. A few days later, I found a receipt for a dinner for two in his car. It wasn't from a place we had been to together. When I confronted him about it, he admitted that he had gone out to dinner with his coworker to discuss the new job offer. He insisted that it was purely professional, but I couldn't help but feel betrayed. Why hadn't he told me about it? We had another heated argument. He accused me of not trusting him, and I accused him of hiding things from me. It felt like we were back to square one. I was at my wit's end and didn't know what to do. I decided to take the kids and stay with my sister for a few days to clear my head. During that time, I did a lot of soul searching. I realized that I had been so focused on my own feelings and needs that I hadn't really considered his. I decided to write him a letter, pouring out my heart and apologizing for not being more understanding. I told him that I wanted to work on our marriage and that I was willing to do whatever it took to make things right. When I got back home, he was waiting for me. He had read the letter and was visibly moved. He apologized for not being more open with me and for making me feel like I couldn't trust him. We both agreed that we needed to communicate better and be more honest with each other. We started setting aside time each week to talk about our feelings and any issues that were bothering us. It wasn't easy, but it was a step in the right direction. We also decided to seek help from a marriage counselor, despite his initial reluctance. It was a tough decision, but we knew we needed an unbiased third party to help us navigate our issues. As we worked through our problems, I learned more about his past and why he struggled with communication. He grew up in a household where expressing emotions was seen as a sign of weakness. His father was very strict and rarely showed affection, which made it hard for him to open up. Understanding this helped me be more patient and compassionate. On the flip side, he learned about my insecurities and why I felt the need to express my feelings so often. Growing up, my parents had a tumultuous relationship, and I always feared that unresolved issues would lead to a breakup. This made me overly cautious and sometimes overbearing. We still have a long way to go, but we're making progress. The job offer is still on the table, and we're discussing it together this time. It's not an easy decision, but we're trying to make it as a team. The trust is slowly being rebuilt, and we're learning to appreciate each other's perspectives. Thank you for reading. Aita for giving my coworker a ride home and making my husband insecure. My husband of 20 years is annoyed with me because I have agreed to give a ride home to a coworker who lives a couple of minutes away from our home. The backstory is, my work was hiring, and a good acquaintance of ours, we are regular customers at her business, asked if my work was hiring as her spouse was looking for work. I was able to get him an interview and subsequently a job. He works in a different department, in a different area of the business. and I don't see him often at work. He was recently in a car accident and is waiting for the funds from his insurance to purchase a new vehicle. Normally, his spouse drives him to work, but yesterday and today, she is unable to drive him due to her work schedule. They live about 5 minutes away from my home, and our work is about 40 minutes away. Due to the nature of my role at the company, I am aware of his current situation. He asked if I would mind giving him a ride home, as we are coming from the same area, and I agreed as I didn't see an issue with it. I informed my husband, and he didn't seem to mind. I drove him home yesterday, and it was uneventful. Today he asked if there was any chance I could drive him again, as he was still unable to secure a ride for today, and again I agreed. I don't see the harm in helping someone out. I let my husband know I would be driving the coworker home again today, and he has become very upset. He feels it isn't appropriate for my coworker to take a ride with another man's wife. I reminded my husband that I'm a person, not just a wife, and that I have always been helpful and kind to those around me. That if I was in a bad situation, I would appreciate if my coworker could give me a ride to from work as well. That's what community is all about. My husband is digging in his heels, saying it's totally inappropriate, and he would never drive in a car with another woman. And frankly, he's pissed at me and berating me over text messages. I told him I didn't realize he was uncomfortable, and if he really doesn't like it, then I will make up an excuse to not drive him in the future if he asks. But today I already agreed, and I'm not going to cancel last minute and leave him stranded. My question is it inappropriate to give a coworker of the opposite intimacy a ride, especially if we met him through his wife? I'm questioning whether I am being disrespectful to my husband now. Now, for a few comments before the update. Comment 1. Of course it's not inappropriate. Your coworker is in a temporary bind, and you're in a position to help out with extremely little inconvenience to yourself. This is a kind and normal thing to do. If your husband is not normally a jealous weirdo, maybe it's time to ask him where this is coming from, because you are totally confused by this paranoid reaction. Comment 2. It is not inappropriate. It is literally what your community does for you. Your husband sounds controlling and a bit hurtful. If this is new, he needs to get a full physical. If it isn't new, get out. Now for the update. Hey everyone, thanks for sticking around. So, a lot has happened since I last updated you. After that argument with my husband, I decided to stop giving my coworker rides. I told him that my husband was uncomfortable with it, and he seemed to understand. He thanked me for the help and said he'd figure something else out. I thought that would be the end of it, but it wasn't. A few days later, my coworker's wife came into my workplace. She pulled me aside and asked why I had suddenly stopped giving her husband rides. I explained the situation to her, and she seemed really upset. She said she was disappointed because she thought we were friends and that friends help each other out. I felt terrible, but I didn't know what else to do. I had to respect my husband's feelings, even if I didn't agree with them. That night, I told my husband about the conversation with my coworker's wife. He seemed indifferent and said that it was better this way, but I could tell he was still annoyed. He kept making passive-aggressive comments about how I was too nice and how I always put others before family. It was really starting to get to me. Then, a few days later, my coworker came to me at work and said he had found a temporary solution. He was going to carpool with another coworker who lived a bit further away, but was willing to help out. I was relieved, but also felt a bit guilty. I couldn't shake the feeling that I had let him down. Meanwhile, things at home were tense. My husband and I were barely speaking, and when we did, it was mostly arguments. He kept bringing up the ride situation, even though it was over. It felt like he was using it as an excuse to vent about other things that had been bothering him. I started to wonder if this was really about the rides, or if it was about something deeper. One night, after another heated argument, I decided to confront him. I asked him why he was so upset about the rides when he had initially said it was okay. He finally admitted that he was feeling insecure. He said he felt like I was more concerned about helping others than about our relationship. He also mentioned that he'd been feeling neglected because I had been working late a lot recently. This was a huge revelation for me. I realized that the rides were just a symptom of a bigger issue. My husband was feeling insecure and neglected, and I hadn't even noticed. I felt terrible and apologized for not being more attentive to his feelings. We had a long talk and decided to work on our communication and spend more quality time together. But things didn't magically get better overnight. It was a slow process, and there were still moments of tension. One day, my coworker approached me again and asked if I could give him a ride just for that day, because his carpool buddy was sick. I was torn. I didn't want to upset my husband again, but I also didn't want to leave my coworker stranded. I decided to call my husband and explain the situation. I told him that it was just for one day and that I didn't want to leave my coworker in a bind. To my surprise, he agreed. He said he appreciated me asking him first and that he trusted me. This was a huge step forward for us. I gave my coworker the ride and it was uneventful as usual. But this time, I felt a sense of relief. I knew that my husband and I were making progress. We were learning to communicate better and to trust each other more. In the days that followed, my husband and I continued to work on our relationship. We started going on date nights again and making an effort to spend more quality time together. It wasn't always easy, but it was worth it. Looking back, I realized that the whole situation with the rides had been a wake-up call for us. It forced us to confront issues that we had been ignoring for too long. It wasn't just about the rides. It was about our relationship and how we needed to work on it. So that's where we are now. Things are still a work in progress, but we're getting there. Thanks for reading. Aita for breaking up with my controlling boyfriend over text and blocking him. I have been dating my boyfriend, 29-year-old, for 6 months, and I really want to leave. I've been 18 the full duration of knowing him, but obviously, nonetheless, the whole thing is morally iffy. Being one of the main reasons I want out, I want a chance at being normal, and I think the age gaps makes things unhealthy in a lot of ways, and I'm simply not comfortable with it. Although I do have care and, to a level, love for him, there have been several things about him that don't sit well with me. One, he doesn't believe he is, but I honestly think he's quite misogynistic and makes a lot of offensive jokes about women and minorities that I find gross and off-putting. Two, he's crossed or even bordered the line on being verbally hurtful on several occasions. I remember one particular time where he screamed at me and called me an idiot on the phone because he was parked illegally and I struggled to find his car for a few minutes. He's also made comments about me being easy because we slept together quickly and said I shouldn't be offended, and slut-shaming me by calling me a little bit of an intimacy worker, and saying it made him think differently of me because I told him about my one hookup, despite him having many more. 3. Even though I've expressed to him I don't want to have unprotected intimacy because it makes me too anxious, he continuously tries to push it and is constantly talking about getting me pregnant. He even said that he would kind of be happy if I got pregnant, even though it makes me highly uncomfortable. I think he genuinely believes I'm on board with the casualness with which he treats potentially knocking me up, and I'm not. 4. One time we were having an argument in the car shortly after my breakup attempt, and he got really upset and started yelling and driving recklessly. This really frightened me. I have attempted to break up with him 3 times, but each time he has begged, guilted, or otherwise convinced me into staying. He can be very loving, but it just doesn't offset everything else. The last time I attempted to break up, I did it over text and blocked him on everything. I know this is a bit mean, but I didn't want to repeat. But he messaged me on an alternate Instagram account, threatening to come into my work if I didn't call him. Very stupidly, we met up and I agreed to give him another chance. I think he is mentally unstable, and it really scares me that he knows where I live with my family and where I work. No one in my life knows about this, and I don't think I could live with it if they did. I feel really trapped in this situation. Now, for a few comments before the update. Comment 1. Hi dear, I'm so sorry he treats you like that. And you are absolutely correct about all of your conclusions. I'm so proud of you for being able to identify the red flags. Please get as many people in your corner as possible, as other commenters have suggested, and then break up with him via text. Block him. Tell others he is not allowed anywhere near you. At work, you can tell them he is likely to stalk and harass you, and to turn him away at the door if he should come by. Don't worry about the repercussions for him. He is responsible for his own actions. The very best of luck to you. Comment 2. I think breaking up over text and blocking was the right move. And it's not mean when the guy keeps harassing and manipulating you and making you feel unsafe. That's for your safety. It's not a negotiation. You're allowed to break up when you're not happy with him. And you have good reasons too. Like others suggested, tell someone about what's going on. Then go ahead again, tell the guy it's over, and block and ignore him again on any method he uses to reach out. Call the police if he keeps harassing you. Now, for the update. Hey everyone, thanks for reading my last post. So, 3 months have passed since I last updated you, and a lot has happened. After my last attempt to break up with him, things got even more complicated. I decided to try and distance myself emotionally, but it was harder than I thought. He started showing up at my work more often, bringing me lunch and trying to act like everything was perfect. It was suffocating, but I didn't know how to push him away without causing a scene. One day, he showed up with a surprise trip planned for us. He had booked a weekend getaway to a cabin in the woods. I was hesitant, but he insisted it would be good for us. I felt cornered and agreed to go, thinking maybe I could find a way to talk to him about ending things for good. The trip started off okay, but things took a turn when he started drinking heavily one night. He became aggressive and started accusing me of not loving him. I was scared and tried to calm him down, but he just got angrier. I ended up locking myself in the bathroom until he passed out. The next morning, he acted like nothing had happened. I was on edge the entire time, just waiting for the trip to be over. When we got back, I knew I had to find a way out. I started confiding in a close friend about everything that had been going on. She was shocked and urged me to go to the police, but I was too scared of what he might do if he found out. A few weeks later, I found out I was pregnant. I was devastated and didn't know what to do. I knew I couldn't raise a child with him, but I also didn't want to bring a baby into this mess. I decided to tell him, hoping it might make him realize how serious things were. When I told him, he was ecstatic. He started talking about our future together and how we would be a family. I felt trapped and didn't know how to break free. I finally decided to reach out to my family for help. I told them everything, and they were incredibly supportive. They helped me come up with a plan to leave him for good. I moved back in with my parents and changed my phone number. I also filed for a restraining order, hoping it would keep him away. The fallout from all of this has been intense. He showed up at my parents' house multiple times, demanding to see me. My dad had to threaten to call the police to get him to leave. I found out he had been telling people that I was crazy and that I had made everything up. It was humiliating, but I knew I had to stay strong for my own safety and the safety of my baby. During this time, I started seeing a therapist to help me process everything that had happened. It was through these sessions that I began to understand just how manipulative and hurtful he had been. I realized that I had been ignoring so many red flags because I was scared of being alone. My therapist helped me see that I deserved better and that it was okay to put myself first. As I started to heal, I also began to reflect on my past relationships and how they had shaped my self-worth. I remembered a time in high school when I had dated a guy who was also controlling and manipulative. I had stayed with him for far too long because I thought I couldn't do any better. It was a pattern I had fallen into, and I was determined to break it. One day, I received a letter from him. It was a long, rambling apology, but it also included a veiled threat about how he would never let me go. I was terrified, but I knew I couldn't let him control me anymore. I took the letter to the police and added it to my restraining order case. It was a small victory, but it felt like a step in the right direction. As the months went on, I started to rebuild my life. I reconnected with old friends and began to focus on my own happiness. I also started preparing for the arrival of my baby. It was a scary and uncertain time, but I knew I was doing the right thing. Looking back, I can see how much I have grown and how far I have come. I still have moments of doubt and fear, but I am learning to trust myself and my instincts. I know that I deserve to be happy and safe, and I am committed to creating a better future for myself and my child. Thank you for reading. If you like this video, you'll probably like these too. Also, while you're here, please consider subscribing. It's your support that keeps this channel alive and allows me to make better and longer videos. Have a great day.